This begins part 2 of the Emergency Communications Training, session number 3. We will resume discussion with the other operating locations. These are examples of other locations that we could support if requested. There's currently no solid plan for our use in these areas, but in a long-term post-event sheltering operation, these are possible. As long as commercial communications are operational, we probably won't be using these ways. I try to keep that open as a possibility. In most cases, we'll end up using our own equipment, vehicles, or handheld radios. Now we're going to talk about infrastructure sites. Infrastructure sites are those sites with equipment but no operating position, at least not for us. Centera Careplex has 2 operating positions, but they are for the HART volunteers, none of which we are. If they have volunteers, they may want to join the net. Hopefully we'll hear from them before execution if that's the case. Each of these sites have digital or analog equipment that supports our operation communications capabilities. We'll detail the equipment for these capabilities as we go along here. Here's a layout of these infrastructure site locations. Hampton City Hall remains a key location for us, even though it's in a Category A flood zone. The mesh, packet, and D-Star nodes are all here. There is a generator on the roof, and the facility is top priority for power restoration if needed, so it's a good place for us to be. We currently have to go through a procedure to gain access to the facility, but so far that has not been a problem. A few years ago, the city moved all their antennas off the 2 towers that are on the roof and onto the rail on the roof of the elevator box. They then designated those 2 towers for our exclusive use. The 2 red circles are the towers, and the yellow circle is the radio room that contains some of our equipment. These towers each have a VHF, UHF antennas and meshed antennas on them. On the left is the north tower. This picture was taken before the 900 megahertz node was added, which is better shown in the bottom right picture. The top right shows all of the lightning protection that we have in place, both for the VHF, UHF antennas as well as all the mesh nodes. This is the south tower. The bottom dish is not ours, and I don't believe it's operational. This is our equipment rack. You can see that we have the D-Star, packet, and mesh all contained along here with a battery backup to keep things active and a switch over to the generator power. The city is currently giving us 2 external IP addresses that we use for the D-Star and mesh nodes. Here's a block diagram of what's installed at City Hall. There are 3 packet nodes, 2 UHF and 1 VHF, 3 D-Star repeaters, and 4 mesh nodes. We anticipate adding additional mesh nodes to this to point at from the EOC and to Andrews in the future, plus other possible nodes. That's the D-Star stack. Centera Careplex is a major relay node for us as well, for our mesh systems. We also have UHF repeater there. Currently, the repeater is transitioning from D-Star fusion analog to DMR fusion analog. So hopefully the DMR part is working well now, although we've had some troubles with it here as it transitioned. They do have an operator position, but it's for their HART operator, and currently none of our folks are HART volunteers. They used to have radio in the EOC, the blue circle there, but I'm not sure it's still there. The operator position is on the 5th floor next to the IT server room that contains all of our equipment. Both are marked with the yellow circle. The repeater antenna with the red circle on the right, and the mesh is on the left. Our UHF antenna is in the middle. Rayson, the Radio Amateur Society of Norfolk, sometimes has a 2-meter repeater there, and their antenna is to the left of ours in the picture. The picture on the right is the temp fix we did on the HART antenna. The antenna was previously bolted directly to the HVAC vent, and they asked us to move it for them, but they didn't have the other half of the clamps. So hopefully they got that fixed before it got used or blown over. This is the mesh relay point. 1 5 gigahertz dish is pointed at City Hall, and the other is pointed at Station 11 on Big Bethel. There's also an Omni there to provide signal to the Davis Middle School and other local nodes. The original Liberty Baptist Church install was an attempt to strengthen the overall signal in the area. Multiple nodes is what mesh system is all about, so providing multiple paths with automatic rerouting to the best path. The church also has a VHF radio installed, but I'm not sure what their plan is for its use. I know in the past they had planned to allow their parking lot to be used for staging for first responders flowing into the area and after a significant event, but I'm not sure what their plans detail. This is the Omni antenna. The tower is bolted to the roof access ladder, and the power is provided from an outlet next to the HVAC unit. We have been working to improve the UPS capability for this site, and I'm not sure its current status. Executive Tower is another key relay point in the mesh system. Currently, it also houses the spark repeaters. The repeaters use a single GP9, which is on the west side of the building. The left circle encompasses both that antenna and one of the mesh antennas. The picture on the left is the west side of the building. The picture on the right is the east side. The two 5 gig dishes relay the signal from City Hall Tower on Big Bethel to near the USC. The Omni would provide coverage to anyone nearby. The middle of the screen is the GP9 antenna that supports the VHF, UHF spark repeaters. The point of view of the power over Ethernet for the mesh antennas is inside this part of the building, along with a UPS. The tower for the elevators. This is the cabinet for the spark repeaters. Gateway Communications desire to support us however they can. We installed an Omni antenna on their tower as high as we could get, but it still doesn't really help much for some reason. Here you can see the antenna and the PoE. In all locations, our mesh systems are provided with a lightning protection device. Back when we had a ham in charge of city radios, we got the KE4UP repeater installed at the city tower on Bluebird Gap Farm. It's a pretty good location, but access is awkward at best. The antenna is at a decent height, and the entire building is on generator power. Okay, other tasks. We hope that when the city gets their community emergency response team organized, then we will have a liaison between our folks. Our folks will be a liaison between the leader of that group and the emergency operations center. We also provide the condition reporting, as we've talked about before. The condition reporting should include those people that are in the operation areas and have also all of those that are off duty or not deployed at that time. And my idea is that this would contain all people, all hams in the city involved. This is a snapshot of all the hams in the city. You can see we've pretty much got the city covered. This is a map that shows our members. It's a little bit dated, but still shows we have a pretty good dispersion of the members. You can see Group 1 is blue, Group 2 is red, Group 3 is green. There are some teal ones that are undetermined, and there are pinks that are potential hams, the people that were interested in getting licensed in those areas. This is the condition reporting form. We have newer versions that can be filled out on the computer with pick boxes and drop downs. During an event, you want to focus on the front of the form. This is the reverse of the form. The Q through X blocks, Quebec through X-ray box, are designated for use in a post-event assessment. We've also got some guidance on the lower part of the form, just general information. The City of Hampton Emergency Management leadership consists of Mary Bunting, who's the city manager. During an emergency disaster, she assumes the role of the city's emergency manager. Day-to-day operations, the emergency management is overseen by Wee-Son Walker, the emergency management coordinator. There are 2 deputy coordinators, Gwen Pointer and Sarah Snowden. In addition, they have 2 part-time workers, Tracy Hanger, who is a former Hampton fire chief, and Mary Hollup, who is a former deputy director of Hampton Social Services. They are very highly qualified support there. Importantly, these people respect our efforts and are doing all their best to support our operations. In general, emergency management folks are our customer. They determine what sites are needed to be staffed and what should occur. Once things get kicked off, one or more of the RACES leadership, that's me or John or Don or Robert, will attend the EOC briefings and determine the scope of the response and the initiation time. After that, we'll put out an email or run a net to distribute information and solicit volunteers. We'll probably gather responders at the Red Cross and talk through the concept briefing that outlines our planned response. While we're there, we'll determine how best to deliver and distribute the shelter kits. If people have room in their vehicles and can handle the kits themselves, we'll let them take them. Otherwise, the kits will be delivered. In the past, we've had great success having our troubleshooter travel to the different sites to help get things organized and operational. That will we will likely continue that practice. Once we're in response mode, we'll initiate a net to bring everyone up to speed. We'll typically run information nets with periodic announcements to let people know what's going on. We'll be monitoring stations to collect their status as they proceed through their activation steps. We'll be keeping the emergency management informed of our operational status as we gain additional activation. If and when volunteers become available, we will make determination as to where they should be deployed and coordinate that with all concerned. As long as we have a troubleshooter available, we will coordinate their actions and get everyone fully active as quickly as possible. The deployed amateur radio operator and their are considered staff wherever you're deployed. Shelters have a designated sleeping area for staff, and you can either sleep in that location or in the operating location if there's sufficient room. You'll be fed along with everyone else. You'll need to get a city badge so you can enter the shelter or support site as staff. In addition, shelters have areas that are off limits to general population, but you as staff are allowed. In most cases, the radio rooms are in restricted areas. After the passing of the storm, emergency management will determine shelter closing. If there is a sufficient impact, the shelters may remain open over an extended period of time, and they may consolidate based on the number of occupants. If communication services are functioning, then amateur operations will be likely terminated as directed by emergency management. If communication services are not functioning, then we will be expected to remain on site. At that point, we'll begin contact individuals to see who are not available at the passing of the storm, to see if they can go and make themselves available for a shift so that some of our other folks can go home and check on things. This is a general guide to our response actions. I'm going to just talk through this guide as outlined for the next few slides. So we want you pre-deployment to make sure your home and family are prepared, determine your ability to respond and deploy, and then let us know. Attend the concept briefing. So you'll come to, again, we talked about the Red Cross. Come there and we'll talk through our plan in advance, receive your assignment, review your part of the Incident Command System ICS 205 form. We'll deploy the kits, and then at the given time, we'll arrive on location and begin response. Sometimes we'll deploy the kits and then set things up and then go home for a period of time and then come back at the right response time to begin. When you begin operations, you will maintain a position log. These are ICS form 214s. We want you to make sure you do both a manual log, which is the primary because of the we don't want to lose power and lose our log, but also update that electronically as quickly as possible so we can maintain an easier record of operations. You're going to indicate the operators that are there, any significant events that happen, and then equipment status and check-ins and such. You're going to check in on voice on 2 meters. You're going to check in with email. Send us a message on email, using the RMS system. Also with also with mesh rather. You'll report the IP address and call sign of the position, so we can associate the correct call sign to the location. We have intended for certain call signs to go to certain shelters, but that may not be the case, so we would ask you to confirm that. So you activate the mesh chat and check in with us. Then if there's a phone handy, you'll call and give us so we can have your phone number as well. We hope to have a shelter status page established, and then once that happens, once we have that, then you'll be expected to go into the mesh system and update your status to show what you're operational and what your modes of operation are. If you have FRS radios deployed with you, you'll check them, put them on charge, establish a sign-out roster, and when you talk to your to the shelter manager, you'll give them the information that you have those FRS radios available for use. And then you also may be expected to requested to establish a recall roster, or a roster rather, of shelter worker cell phones. Again, this is something you'll coordinate with the shelter manager. So once you have all this done, you go find the shelter manager, the facility manager, or some supervisor in charge. They typically have a unified command type response because there are several different organizations that are involved in running a shelter, and no one person has the legal ability to be in charge. So you'll have social services who provides most of the staff, and there'll be a supervisor there. Oftentimes one of the principals or vice principals from the school will be on site. The school will have their security officer on site. Often there's a Hampton Police Department officer there. Sometimes a Red Cross liaison. Sometimes there's a public health nurse, and sometimes there's a fire department, a medic crew there as well. So all those people may be there, and but you need to make primarily make your contact with the social services supervisor, and make sure they know what your capabilities are. So you can provide them a capabilities brief, which is actually included in the shelter kits. You'll tell them about the FRS radios and issue them as requested, and also talk about the phone schedule. Find out from them what their schedule is, as the military calls it, a battle rhythm. When's their briefings, when's their meetings, what's their feeding schedule, and then also figure out the best way to get in and out of the building, and pass that on to your other workers that are in there with you. You want to determine your own sleep locations and patterns. Determine the best reporting observation location. So if you look out the window to see what the weather's doing, so you can report that as necessary. And then your shifts. So if there's 2 people there or 4 people there, you need to talk about how you're going to be broken up into shifts. If it's possible that you may be able to go home and come back, then that's fine. Or you might be just staying there depending on what the weather conditions are at the time. During the response, you'll pass on conditions reports as requested. You also pass information to the shelter manager or residents as requested. You pass on significant events as they occur. Don't wait for the next condition reporting cycle to come up. If something significant happens, report it right then, such as power outages or trees down or whatever in your area. So ensure that your any communications that you have between your location and the EOC are signed by your personal call sign, so we know who's on duty right there. Okay. So each kit has each shelter kit is 2 kits. There's a desktop kit that has the radios and the computer, and then there's a power kit. And the combination for the power kit is the tactical frequency 147.555 without the 1.4, and then the key for the desktop kit is inside the power kit. So you're going to set up everything, connect everything. The black-red power cord from the power kit will plug into a block on the desktop kit with the Anderson power poles. You're going to connect your antenna cable to the duplexer. You're going to connect your mesh category 5 cable from the POE to the computer, or we might have a little Wi-Fi access point there, router there for you to use as well, so you can connect other devices. Then connect your TNC packet TNC connector to the computer as well, and plug in AC power to the backup power generator power. Power things up. 12-volt power supply. Start the computer with his designated power supply plugged in directly to an outlet, and then move it to the inverter after the power supply has a chance to charge the laptop's battery. We don't want to try to charge the laptop battery with the power inverter, so you have to start off with it not on the inverter and then move it to the inverter once it's charged. And then you turn on the radios in the computer. Start a log. Check in on 14549 with either the EOC or net control, depending on how it's operating. So you use tactical call signs, your shelter name, and other designator, and then you'll end your call with your FCC call sign. We never use the shelter call signs. You'll see some call signs that are on the TNCs. Those are only for the TNC's use. We never use those for any other reason. So an example is you would call EOC, this is the Bethel shelter, and then when you were done, you would say, this is KC4F at the EOC clear. That kind of a thing. All of the computers, to log into the computers, the passwords are shelter, all lowercase. You'll open up the Firefox browser, and it should default to the HPT mesh status page, but there's the URL just in case you need that. There's a guide called the Opening a Shelter that's within the shelter kits for this as well. And then check in with the EOC on all the modes, phone, radio, and data. And then go check in with the shelter manager once you've done all that. These are the things you can brief the shelter manager. Show your badge, introduce yourself. If it's just one of you, inform them of the second person that's still at the radio, because you don't want to leave that unmanned. Inform them of the location of your station within the facility. Inform them of your capabilities. Refer to the shelter guide that has that list of capabilities. Inform them of the planned operational procedures. One person is always going to be at the radio. One person may attend any shelter staff meetings, and we'll eat and take breaks rather in shifts, so that we always have somebody at the radio. We also need to outline what we expect. If we expect to have somebody relieving us, or if we're going to be operating ourselves at the duration. It just depends on our level of volunteers that we have. If you bring your family to the shelter, which is fine, they'll be shelter staff families. There's a special place for them in there. Just tell the shelter manager where they are as well. You're going to provide, this is the part of the briefing, that you can provide direct voice communications to the EOC, other shelters, and the Red Cross on behalf of the shelter manager. And they can even take the mic and talk directly to somebody else there, with you being the control operator. So just make sure they understand that. You have the capability to send email-like messages to the EOC or the Red Cross. The ability to send email with attachments is also there, but make sure we manage the size of the attachments. If the shelter staff creates files on a disk or memory stick, such as client lists or whatever, these files can be sent via radio. Got to bear in mind the HIPAA requirements, though. So check in with them and with us at the EOC before you send lists. Most operators have battery-operated handheld portable radios, and the mobile radios in their vehicles as a backup in case there is a power failure. Although in some of our schools, the handheld radios are not going to get outside of the building very well, because the buildings are built like Faraday cages. We do not handle health and welfare or that kind of messages during an actual event, but there is a possibility we will do that during a recovery. Any inquiries as to who's in the shelter received by the operator will be forwarded to the EOC or the shelter manager as appropriate. If available, you may be issued a city 800 megahertz radio for facilitating communications between the city management and the shelter. And then we talked about the FRS radios already. If we have those, there are 3 kits of those. You may get 5 or 6 radios. keep one for yourself, and then issue the rest as directed by the shelter manager. Oh, here they are. Put them on charge, issue as directed, keep a log of who has them, and then keep one for yourself. If you're asked to create a cell phone log, make sure you get their name, their function, and then of course the number. And then always keep the EOC informed whatever is going on, and you log everything. This checklist is included in the shelter kits, but the contents are also available in the How to Open a Shelter document. Some of this stuff you need to look at prior to deploying, so make sure you get a chance to do that. This is the back side of that form. All right, that's it. Hope that you enjoyed the time, and let me know that you've watched this program. All right, thank you. KC4F clear.